Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
G'day, how you going? Phil Tarrant, co-host of Smart Property Investment Show, recording in our 10th year of podcasting. People think podcasting is new. We've been doing it for a long time, and how many, 1,000 or something or other interviews over the years, which is pretty cool. Being able to navigate all those conversations. The issue is that because I've done that, people seem to think I know a fair bit about property, but I'm still learning, and I enjoy learning. It's pretty much how I do learn, through conversations on this podcast, what's going on, keep my finger on the pulse, trying to narrate, converse, shape opinions, habits and behaviours by sharing information on this podcast is what we're all about. And please keep those reviews coming. So I don't want to bang on about this, but I keep getting in trouble from the team here saying, Phil, can you just ask for reviews, please? It's really good. The more reviews we get, the more people tune into it. That means we can help more people invest in property. So please keep those reviews coming. It'd be a great favour to me. And it's also good getting those written reviews for the people who do the heavy lifting on this show to know what they're doing actually makes a difference. But we're recording this podcast a couple of days before International Women's Day. And as a company, we like to market. We do it internally with our own team members at Momentum. But I note also, particularly in mortgage broking, you get some very strong nearly all female teams in mortgage broking. One of them is Finni Mortgages, who we bring onto the show as our experts from time to time to actually work us through and talk to us about property investment. By and large, I think nearly a fully was a female-dominated team or highly skilled and capable mortgage brokers. Most of you would know Eva Loisance, who is their head broker there, the principal broker, and her team. They do some pretty heavy lifting, and I just really wanted to use this podcast and the fact that it is International Women's Day just to have a bit of chat about female property investing. And I've been talking about this for 10 years on this podcast, and I'm very conscious about it, and I want to try and navigate today, and I don't want to sort of do it in a clumsy fashion, so I'll try my best to actually have an informed discussion around the underrepresentation of females inside of property investment, both within the property investment profession, but also as property investors. So I'm conscious that on this podcast, we don't have as many female guests as what we should do. We work really hard and we try really hard to actually get female guests coming to the studios. And maybe it's a product of the fact that, you know, you have more males in this aspect of property investment advisory than females. We are underrepresented when it comes to female guests on the podcast, and we're working on that. And for all those ladies out there and the women out there who want to come and have a chat with us on a podcast, we really encourage you to come and do so. We really want more female voices on this podcast. The female voice is very, very important. And while everyone's trying to achieve the same aims and aspiration as wealth creation through property, we, go about it sometimes in very different ways. And Mars and Venus type of stuff, what sort of drives and motivates men to invest in property, sometimes very different for women. How they go about and their approaches to and their mindsets around it is different. And that's all okay. That's just the way it is. But more female voices on this podcast, please. We'd like to bring you on and have a chat, whether or not you're thinking about investing in property or you have large property investment property. And there's a lot of women I know with very large property investment portfolios who just don't say a lot about it, and that's cool as well. But anyway, we can encourage you to come over yarn with us on the show. We'd like to do that. Editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au is best way. Get in touch, no matter what you're doing. Come and share your experience with a very friendly and connected audience of people who, again, are all after the same thing as wealth creation through property. So that's my request. If you can come on, have a yarn to us, I'd really like to have those conversations and share those successes. But today I really want to sort of maybe talk about some of the machinations of female property investors. But I'm not going to do it alone. So I've invited Eva Loisance into the studio to help me with this. Eva, how you going?
Yeah, good, thank you.
You can probably say things that I probably can't say things. I'm very conscious of, I come from a very female-orientated and dominated household. I grew up in a very female-orientated household, and I sort of live in a very female-orientated household now. There's not a lot of, for some reason, I'm surrounded by females everywhere. So I sort of have this, and maybe it's me more than anything, but this sort of this assumed bias that gender really is irrelevant because it's not really a thing in my house, and it wasn't like that when I was brought up. It was like the women were the people out there doing all the heavy lifting, right?
Yeah.
And typically the men were, no hopers, and that sort of remains. I don't really sort of. I don't know if you can say, but I don't really sort of. Gender's not a big issue.
Yeah,
in
because
our
you haven't
household.
experienced it.
Because I have daughters and all of that, and I sort of grew up in a very sort of female when I was younger. But I am conscious that sometimes it is a thing. And you're on the front line, and you probably see this. So I want this to be a very practical conversation, and maybe a message to many or some of our female listeners about how you can actually get shifting, get moving, and it could be a mindset thing, it could be a situational thing, it could be a responsibilities thing. Like there's a whole bunch of reasons why people don't invest in property, or they've got to get around to investing in property. So just to be a bit conscious of it. That's okay, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I haven't said anything wrong yet.
No, I haven't said anything wrong. That's okay. Look, I think most of the cliches that we have in our head about female investing and money and the gap in pay and super and all that, the cliche is there because it's actually true. There is a massive difference between what male can do and what females can do or are doing. Even though technically we can all do the same thing, there are barriers there.
There's a lot of barriers, and some of them are real barriers, and some of them I would say also imagined barriers, right? And part of that could be cultural, like there's male and female, but if you cascade that down, depending on your culture, there's going to be different application ramifications of that as well. Like it's just the way it is. So the purpose of this chat is maybe just raising awareness of it, but how there are ways in which we can increase female representation inside of property investment. I think, and there's a story here written by one of my colleagues on smart property investment, another French lady, Emily.
We're on a mission to get the women on the property ladder,
But have you done a podcast yet with Emily?
Yes.
We should do it,
Yes, on first-home buyers. And I think it's part of our culture in some ways, the French, to get everybody up with us. So when we know something, you just want to share it and get people to succeed. And what I see in my client is the first obstacle is just that they don't believe they can. So
it's just a mindset thing.
A mindset thing, yeah. It's
is that an education thing, or is it a conditioning thing? It's you know what I mean? Like, is it like, and this is like, there is no reason why there shouldn't be parity in property investment between men and women. Like, it should get to the point that the gender is irrelevant, right? It should be the same. Yeah. Because I think it's accessible. It's as accessible. Well, there'd be an argument to say that property investment maybe isn't as accessible to some females over than others. And this story put together by Emily, she says that there's gender representation for owner-occupier, so it's about the same. And I think like 90% of all properties owner-occupied, and this is out of research from CoreLogic. Eliza, if you're tuning in this, how are you going? I thought it was some really good commentary you put in this. 9 out of 10 properties are owned by romantic partners, right? But again, that's a gender thing.
Yeah, so I think that says the females are waiting for, I want to call it the Prince Charming, to get into the property market.
But also I do acknowledge that and note, and before anyone gives me a hard time, that not all romantic partners assumes male and female. We live in a very vibrant and very
there's actually a note
diverse.
on that in that article.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to forget anyone here. So I'm just saying we're very fortunate Australia's a very vibrant and diverse way in which we all choose to live, and that's great. Of female respondents, 80% said that they co-own their property with a male partner, 11.6% with a female partner. Okay, I think that's probably representative of romantic relationships. In Australia, this is a survey done by CoreLogic, but according to the data, only 11.4% of women own at least one investment property compared to 14.2% of men, while 2.4% of women and 3.2% of men say they owned a few investment properties. So women are underrepresented in the property investment side of things.
And it gets worse as the wealth, I guess, increases.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to to slice and dice this, we should be working towards parity, I believe. Absolutely. Why wouldn't we? But, if you look at the history of Australia, we've been very good in some ways in fair gender representation. I think we were the second nation in the world to actually have universal suffrage. So I think females got the vote in 1902, which is pretty cool. In France, you had to wait to the end of the Second World War. Sorry, I thought I'd bring that up. Any chance to get there?
Should bring that in?
Give the knock the French a little bit. 43 years too late. But up until 1974, a female couldn't have her own bank account.
That's right.
That's madness when you think about it.
Yeah, it's only 50 years ago. Her husband had to co-sign.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of heritage on why the disparity is still there.
It's only 50 years ago.
Yeah, 50 years ago.
It's recent.
Yeah, but that's our parents. Right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They had a co-sign. So what the idea is that women didn't have
we didn't have the literacy
and the sophistication to be interested. But you know what the irony of that, I remember growing up as a kid, and I reckon most households were like this, and I imagine a lot of households are still like this. I'm not generalising. Essentially, the women run the household. Like they're the common thread within families, and they bind them and glue them together. I'm sort of generalising here, and I'm sort of conscious of that. But women essentially they run the show. Like you can say that. Like
that's true. And
financially and culturally and
I get so many
emotionally.
male talking to me. Yeah, I understand. I'm just going to run it past my wife, and she will make the decision.
Yeah.
It's still them. A lot. So it's still them like, I'm doing this, but she's the one deciding.
Yeah.
And I'm actually glad when it's actually, I'm dealing with let's say the wife, because, she just, at the end of the day, it's turned around now. The male has to ask the female to make the decision, which is interesting.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's intriguing, that still takes place, but you see it all the time, and I think, and again, I'm very conscious not to generalize too much, but knowing guys like I do, women are usually a lot more fiscally responsible. Really generalizing here, but but often women are a lot more fiscally responsible than men.
Yeah, it's part of the data. We're more, I guess, conservative and risk adverse.
Yeah.
So it's also a reason why a lot of them don't jump into it and don't invest. I guess they don't have enough information and true advice to really make the decision, when men would just be like, I don't really know about this, but let's go for it anyway.
Yeah.
It's a cliche, I know, but it's what's happening. When I have conversation with, let's say, a single female, the conversation is a lot more in depth. They really want to understand what happened if this, what happened if that.
So they build in contingencies.
Yeah,
and
I think they just want to
understand.
understand and know what's going on. So it takes more time, and I guess they're still seeking approval somewhere. When I have young guys, let's say the Gen Z, they just don't care. They've been told, you should do it. They just do it.
And they get worried about the repercussions.
And in that case, because they got lucky to get onto the good professional, it works out. But it could be that it doesn't work out so well.
And this is probably this nurturing, and again, it's generalizing, and I have no training in this whatsoever. However, that's probably the nurturing mechanism of females versus males, that they're a lot more protective of the family unit and their children and all that sort of stuff, so they don't want to put them in a position which could jeopardize that. And that's okay. So what I would say around all this, and maybe, you know what, maybe we need someone to come and have a chat with us to talk about
knows all these
things,
like
psychology. And if there's anyone out there that knows anyone who can talk about the female psychology towards investing, I reckon what we would deduce from it all is that the greatest assets of that financial discipline and risk aversion, and again, I'm generalizing and all that sort of stuff, the greatest assets of that is probably one of the greatest negatives, in that it will probably stifle decision making potentially because of those things, right? And I'm not having an opinion on that at all. I'm just sort of making the point. But how do you get yourself to a point where you have enough education that you can make a decision and follow through that decision without worrying about consequences too much, or how much can you de-risk yourself before you make a decision?
Yeah, and I think that's where it's lacking first in your education system. So I can compare because where I come from, we learn about money.
They teach you about money in
We
France,
learn
do
about
they?
money.
Okay.
I don't think here it's happening at all. So
No, I don't think
people get out of school and go and get a credit card, and if they never read The Barefoot Investor, they never know about anything, right? So we talk to a lot of people, like I get quite a few clients of the like Gen Z, like 18, 27. I think from all the media these days, they really know how they can get there and build wealth. They just have no idea how, and they just listen to TikTok and stuff that are not so reliable sometimes. But the issue comes from, where do you get the right advice?
And that's the problem. That's the challenge.
A big problem, without any proper education.
Yeah, there's a lot
on
of
that
influencers out there who are sort of selling something.
Yeah. Sometimes I see like clients send me videos. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, they send you things saying, hey, I just seen
like,
this.
Can we do this? Like, that sounds good. I'm like, well, that's not even a thing.
It's make-believe. Yeah. And this is a universal challenge for right. Male or female, gender.
It is. But I find like often male can find other male mentors. It's a lot easier.
Yes.
And mentoring is very important in that space. I don't have any female mentors.
No.
And it's harder, I guess, to do.
But no doubt a lot of people turn to you for the purpose of doing that. It's
that's right. And I'm happy to, but I think it's harder as a female to find someone you can really ask questions and trust. There's a trust issue.
I was going to say, it's a trust thing, right? So
and you're a bit like, imagine a 20 years old that knows nothing. It's really hard to go to an accountant that's 50 years old, cliche again, or a financial planner or a broker. Like, as brokers, only 27% are female.
Yeah.
And probably not that keen to chat to a 20 years old about her investing, right?
And typically these experts are white middle-aged males
that don't give exactly.
Yeah. And I will just make this remark once. I am not having this conversation assuming there's only two genders by the way of male or female. So that we're very conscious that gender identity comes in many different variations of versions today. So, but this is just for the purpose of navigating this chat. So the point is, don't let a lot of those aspects which will make you a really good property investor through education, interrogation, and risk aversion stifle your ability to make a decision on investing in property. So this is the point. When does it need to? When does it need to get to a point where, inverted commas, in the balance of things, it's right to make a call and de-risk yourself as much as possible around the consequences of potentially making a wrong investment? I think that's probably what most property investors struggle with, basically. But that may be exacerbated. Maybe I'm generalizing, but that might be exacerbated even more because the underrepresentation of maybe female mentors, female advisors, female confidants, trusted people who...
And also I think female, I guess when you have your mother, aunties, friends that are doing it and talking about it, it's like, well, that's very possible. But I think, like, if I think about, okay, who can I think of that's sort of like me and guide me and inspire me? I don't have a female version of that.
And how do you find someone like that? It's really, really tough, right?
It's hard.
Welcome back. Phil Tarrant, co-host or host of the Smart Property Investment Show, chatting with Eva for my co-host podcast with her, where we talk through finance, and I'm sort of stumbling through a conversation here trying to talk about female investing and underrepresentation, and I think I'm doing all right with it because I think it's really important. And we sort of concluded the chat before the break about accessibility of advice and trusted advice, and maybe how women go about forming and forging relationships is different to how men go about forming and forging relationships. Accessibility to people who can help you accelerate those things. That fortunately now you've got sort of some investor people who are trying to functionally and champion female investor communities. I think it's a great thing to do. They can always come and chat to you as well.
Yeah, that's like one of my...
But are you easy to trust? but you know what I mean? Like, it's...
You tell me.
You assume trust.
Yep.
through a
Yeah.
property investment advisor. So
Yeah.
I like to assume trust. And you can look at someone's professional qualifications and their track
Yeah,
record and
yeah.
see how good they are and all that. You're not a bad broker.
Thanks.
It's a compliment, by the way. You're very good. You're a very good mortgage broker. But how do you just?
Yep.
You've got to be a bit vulnerable,
Yep.
I think, to do property investment well.
Look, I'll tell you how I started. When I first came to Australia, so it was 2012. Obviously, I knew nothing, and a few people I talked to, they just thought I was that dumb French backpacker that would just never do anything right. So you're laughing.
You didn't have English then, did you?
No,
really?
I didn't speak English either.
No.
But you know what I did? I went to library because I have freaking no money, and I rented this book called Property Investing for Dummies.
Oh yeah, the yellow one.
The yellow and black one, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just read through that. It's very simple, but it was really hard because I couldn't really speak English at the time. And that gave me enough to know enough to go and speak to the people and know, okay, this person actually know what they're talking about or not based on just data from that book. And then you start with this and then you go and read like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you go and read all those books that are the pillars of what you need to know. And then you sort of know enough to really ask the right question and know if that person you're talking to is on your side or just trying to get you to do something because they're getting kickback out of it.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you need a really good filter.
You need a
And I'll
filter.
tell you what, I don't want to generalize, but the female filter is usually much better than the male filter. You guys detect BS sometimes better than guys.
Yeah.
You know, which is an asset, right? You've got to interrogate and question stuff, but you don't want that to be an expense at the expense of
Yeah,
never
I think if you
making a
don't know
decision.
anything, it's hard to know, okay, what's the natural question out of that?
Yeah.
What should I question? You don't know if you haven't got a general vision of what it is. So yeah, property investing for dummies was a good
We're not so dumb now.
not so dumb now, but
Yeah.
that's how I started getting interested in the market and investing.
So when did you first invest?
Right then.
Like you started investing straight away.
I was that book with for dummies.
Really?
Yeah.
What was your first investment property?
It wasn't good.
No. So you I think some of the numbers, I think less than 1% of people, I think there's probably 1.5% of people own sort of 5 or 6 properties or more.
Yeah.
You fall into that, like,
Yeah.
you fall into that cohort, right? So you arrive on these shores.
Yeah,
in,
and you make mistake along the way. I think what's important is to know how to cut the loss, start again, and know how to. At the time, I didn't have that team. Right now,
Yeah.
I sort of know who I can trust and who makes sense. Obviously, I excel in finance now. I really know what I'm doing in that space, but I don't know if I would. Like thinking back, the broker I had really isn't the type of person I should have got at the time to build a portfolio. It was very much like a first home type of.
Yeah, but you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your first?
My first was off the plan unit. Typical.
where at? Yeah.
Sold now.
They're gone. Sold it.
Sold and gone.
And then you just
Kept going
buying.
from that.
Yeah. And then you made Australia your home. Great story.
Good story.
Great migrant story. It's what we like in Australia.
Female migrant story.
What's that?
Female.
Female migrant
Migrant
story.
stories,
Yeah.
yeah.
You come out here by yourself as well?
Mm.
Yeah. Why'd you leave France? Never really asked you before.
Yeah, well, it was.
Because you like, I'll give you a hard time and stuff, and that's because that's the way it is. But you're very well educated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I had after a few years of working as it was in business law, I just got a bit like, is this for me type of thing, and it was very much of a split decision. I saw an email about of traveling to Australia, working visa holiday, whatever it's called. It was on I think on a Monday. I booked the flight for the Friday, and off I went for a bit of a time,
And you arrived in Sydney.
And I arrived in Sydney.
Went to a backpackers hostel.
No, just no. I stayed in Northbridge.
In Northbridge.
Yeah, completely out of the. I don't know. Just happened. Don't ask me. Just
Yeah,
happened.
one of those things. Yeah.
One of those things. And then funny, I just go for a coffee and I meet my husband in that coffee shop like a week after I arrived. And then that
Wow.
was it. I never just like that wasn't the plan. just ruin my life and career in France.
I bet your parents were happy. So did you find your Prince Charming in a coffee shop in Northbridge?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It's and it's a good story, but I'm just really curious.
No, it just shows that you never know what will happen.
Yeah.
And you know what? Probably if I had stayed in France, I wouldn't have looked at investing so much because I would have had a career that I guess earned enough money not to really worry about how am I gonna build wealth, because you earn enough income through, business law is enough. You
don't want to be a business lawyer for too long. I'm sorry to all those lawyers out there.
I know, but 2 years and I was like,
most lawyers I know can't wait to stop being lawyers.
Yeah,
it's such a good.
I came here with such like a how am I gonna survive in this country not speaking English?
Look at you now. You're a podcast celebrity.
And I'm a podcast.
Yeah, I think, and we get quite a fair bit of feedback on this podcast, and I think people say I give you a bit too much of a hard time about your Frenchness sometimes, but I reckon it's fair sport.
You love it. You love the French.
I like the French. It's one of my favourite places to travel to, France. I like the French. I've had many good nights.
Yes. Sitting
around doing what the French people love to do, and that's debate
the
things.
Wine
yes, yeah, they do. I know my French history pretty well, but so it can be done.
It can be done.
It absolutely can be done. So what? This really didn't start off as an interview with sort of about you, but there must be something which has allowed you, from a mindset point of view, to
and I think that's where
get stuck in.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of the clients I have that are jumping into it by themselves is because they realize. I think historically, it was very normal to get married and have the kids and just build a life with someone else. These days, this is also normal to stay single, decide not to have kids, not to get married, and just make it on your own.
Yeah.
And so I think the one that are doing it is because they really understand, well, I'm capable, I'm independent, I don't need anyone else to do this. I don't need the Prince Charming. Yeah.
I think.
And you might buy a property later with your husband.
Yeah,
or your wife,
I think it's great. And I
guys, we don't need you. So all the females listening, please come to me. We'll help.
There you go.
We'll help to do this.
That's exactly what I want Eva to say. This. And again, everyone has different versions or variations of what their story is going to be, and I think that's really, really cool. But
but the thing is, people can, if they want to. We're happy to teach them. We're happy to show them the way. I'm happy to mentor people. It's not that hard.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
It's not that hard.
It can be difficult, and the how can largely be planned out. It's the execution that it all comes down to, and again, that's where your mindset is really going to shape your ability to make decisions and own the outcomes. And this is irrelevant whether it's male or female or otherwise. How you're going to succeed as a property investor. Let's just dig down on that, but we'll just go to another break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Phil Tarrant for Smart Property Investment, chatting with Eva around her story, which is what this podcast has become, making her mark here in Australia and now in the small cohort of property investors. Australia's been good to you, but what I would say, you've also been good to Australia, and that's the migrant story. I think that's it's the. When you look at the sort of the European, when the Europeans arrived in Australia, we had two very different stories of Australia. It's a story of migrants given a red hot crack, irrespective of gender. So I think we should absolutely acknowledge that. And you see it now, you must see it in your client base, a lot of migrants, and they go, hang on a second, this place is great. I give it a red hot go. If you look for excuses why you can't do stuff, you're always going to have a wall in front of you.
And that's in every part of your life, yeah,
irrespective.
That's right.
So tell me then why you said to me that you get a whole bunch of inquiries from females who are like really want to get in. They're like, it's something that they're exploring and they're educating themselves, but they're not pulling the trigger to press ahead as fast as what. Yeah. Well, maybe at the same cadence of what men are doing, and maybe this has got something to do with this, the underrepresentation or the imbalance with it all. And again, there's just one thing. There's a whole bunch of other reasons potentially why. But why is that? And how do you think? What would you say to our female listeners who may find themselves in that cycle and they want to break it, but for whatever reason they can't.
Yeah, and I think that the word is exactly that. It's a cycle, and transgenerational cycle, where obviously you model your behavior and your activities in life based on what your parents have done. Sometimes from generation, right? You don't even know it's happening, and I think there's a bit of that where they want to do something, but if they mention that to their mom or dad would be like, oh, just wait and buy a house with your husband. And mom would be like, oh, it's a bit risky. Cliche, but that's what happened. And then often they come back with like, oh, I spoke to Uncle Joe and he said that, I should do this. So they feel like, I think they need a bit of comfort into other people agreeing with what they are doing.
Yeah.
The thing people forget is often people don't like you succeeding. And that's also why a lot of females don't talk about their success, because then...
That's a good point. So we probably have a lot of females who are succeeding, but they're not the people when you're scrolling through.
And also there's their male partner not liking them earning more money or having more success, or I think it's not as easy to be successful as a female as it is as a male. It's expected when you're a male. It's very difficult if you're not. It's just as difficult as a female if you don't have the people around you supporting that.
Yeah. And in many ways, females collectively can work to drive forward and maybe dispel some of those sort of myths maybe around it. Like, it's okay to talk about being successful. Like, it might be harder done than whatever, but that needs to be the collective push. And again, we want more females on the show to come and chat with us. But I'd
the
also...
other thing I just want to add quickly, like this new generation of people, like let's 25, 35, has been so materialistic that having a property, in WA or Victoria isn't showing success right there in other people's face, right? They need to know about it. You need to talk about it. When I think that generation is very much like, oh, look at my car, look at my bag, that's obvious success to them.
Yeah.
And there's, I guess, a shift there that needs to be done on what is actually
successful. Yeah. And when you talk about these things, you start getting the layers of complexity, right?
Yeah.
And I think we would benefit from maybe a professional come and talk about psychology of this stuff. I think is really important. But what I would say to our male listeners out there, like, you need to have a level of consciousness around this stuff, because I'm pretty good, but every now and then you might sort of, you might have a throwaway remark or a joke like, oh, my daughter will just marry well, or something like that. And this stuff is not...
Your daughter hears that.
Yeah. But it's not really helpful, I would say. And that's like a cultural conditioning of like, it's like you see it on your Disney movies. And all that.
Yeah, we were talking about this.
But I think it's important that males who listen to this, property investors, just have a conscious about this stuff. Like, you might not have any malice or negative intent with it, but you sometimes say it and it's probably not productive, right? Like, and even on, you hear it, right? Anyway, I think we can all do it better, our side, the blokes. But how do we, what have you seen that the women clients that you work with, like, what are the common traits of them that make them exceptional as property investors? I
think the obvious answer to me is great. They just want it. They're going to get it regardless what people think or do around them. And just that need of independence. And a lot of them, I think, have just grown up, and that's what I'm talking about, the family around them. They grew up thinking like they don't need anybody to do it anyway, so they just go for it. So
that I think that absolutely starts at home. And for those families out there with females, like from early doors, and we do it with our girls, like, you champion independence and decision making and responsibility and accountability, right?
Male or female, like the education is really important into talking to the kids about investing.
So you get taught about money at school or at home? Well, what's the French? Again, I'm just
you got a general class of economy, but we're really you learn about, okay, what's the share market? What's the property market?
They actually teach about this. What's the property investment? I know you don't have negative gearing in France, because I know some French people that come out here and just go,
yeah, no, that's what I thought. Oh my God.
But like, Is it normal to invest in property in France?
No, not really. It's I guess the percentage would be even lower. But I guess it's just like this idea of equality, that's now
Equality.
in our constitution.
Liberty.
It's just like everyone needs to know about this, and then you know what?
You guys had a big sort of fight about that at some point way back when, didn't you? Where you had to overthrow some folks because you wanted liberty,
yes.
egalitarian,
Liberty.
equality, But they're really important concepts and constructs, right? And it's part of the foundation of being French. Those things, right?
Yeah, and you know what? That's a weird thing as well. Is like I was never taught that specifically, but it's in my blood.
Yeah, okay, with everything, right?
With everything,
this sense of fairness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and just I said to you, like, and I think Emily, she's like, well, let's just bring people up. We know something. Let's just tell everybody, and of sharing and putting everyone on the same boat when there's a boat going somewhere. Yeah, good.
So I'd say Eva that congratulations, well done on how you've arrived in Australia. And you've
wasn't meant like this.
But you've got family and you got a property portfolio, you got a really good career, like everything's pretty cool, but which you should acknowledge how great that is, and the fact that as a female mortgage broker you're probably overrepresenting by so much. You're a very capable broker, and you lead a very capable team of female brokers, but you don't sort of make a big song and dance about it, right? Like, you just go about doing what you're doing, and there's a certain level of class.
You know what someone told me actually when I first started? He said, as a female, you need to do twice as much as a male, and as a female immigrant, it's 4 times as much.
So 4 times as much. You probably do 4 times as much.
That's what I was told. But I think this trust into that is we need to do so much more to just be put on the same level, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely exceptional. Like I see it daily, and I'm so impressed by it all. But it doesn't happen by chance or accident, right? Like you need to be focused. Like whether it's building a property portfolio or career in mortgages and stuff. Like you got to be focused. You got to
believe in yourself.
You got to be absolutely. You throw away words like resilience and all. It's like they're really important things that doesn't often go in your favour, And what I would say also, and again, it's sort of going into a very sort of traditional mindset of how families operate. Women largely still do a lot of the heavy lifting, or most of the heavy lifting on the home front, as well as having professional careers. Like it needs to be acknowledged that is. It's probably balanced. I know different families are different, and men these days do a lot more around the home, but it's still, largely the females are the glue that keeps those things moving forward, and even around financial decision making, right? It's and there's nothing wrong with that. It's cool, I think, but if you want to be,
we're taking the watch out. FY, I'm still happy to deal with Mel and mentor.
I was just chatting with one of your brokers, and I'm trying to get some more home loans at the moment. I can see she's there going,
oh my God,
deal with this guy again, this worst client in the world. But no, it's gender relevant. But so there is an imbalance in property investing. I wouldn't say it's on those numbers we saw there from Eliza. It's not a huge imbalance. But there's still an imbalance. Maybe it's a lot wider than what I think. And I saw some numbers coming out of stats. People,
it's huge.
It's huge when you start looking at percentages. Yeah,
it's
right?
like you think, the salary gap is what, 10-15% these days. So much. It's huge.
It's just a huge gap, right?
It's huge.
But I did see some numbers there is that it changed a little bit as females get older. The representation changes in their wealth, right?
You would mention that one.
But no, it's just they're just numbers, right? So what we're trying to do is give some sense to it.
Picture.
Yeah. But let's fix the imbalance. Let's get more females investing. I say.
Yeah, I'd love to chat to more females, and it's young, in their 20s, that have a job. You just need a job. If we can start there.
And if you've got a job,
we can do something.
We can do something largely.
Yeah.
Or at least start thinking about saving deposits. But even if it's just financial discipline and education around.
That's right. Just to know, okay, maybe I'm not there yet, but what do I need to know? Or, this option of family pledge is so on the known. if your parents have a property with a bit of equity, then you don't need any deposit.
Let's
Nothing.
talk about that very quickly. So, and again, it's irrelevant of gender. However, we're speaking to the female investors today. A family pledge is that essentially it's a contingent access to your what would normally be your parents' property on the basis that you can't repay your mortgage, right? So you can get into the market with no dough.
Yes, correct. So let's say you needed, I don't know, 100K to get in. We're just borrowing 100K temporarily against your parents' property until you either repay that 100K or your property increase in value so we can release your parents' property.
But you don't actually take the $100,000 from your parents' property. It's just it's like a caveat against it.
Yeah, it's like an equity release against your parents' property.
Yeah. But there's no real money come out and there's no debt paid against.
There's a debt against the child's loan, like it's an increased debt, extra 100K there.
Yeah.
But that's the way to get in with zero. And what I mean zero is we can get the stamp duty, the buyer's agent fee, the legal cost, everything.
Yeah.
You can start with zero.
That's crazy. So then it comes down to making sure you buy a property that's going to grow in value so you can release your parents' home. So that's a great way to start.
Yeah. It's huge.
How hard is it to work that out?
No, it takes 10 minutes. Like
So 20-year-old females, 30-year-old females who are there, they're working hard, they're saving dough, they're being financially responsible, they're not.
Got a job, need a job.
I
can't help you if you don't have a job.
Yeah, job's important.
A job's important.
You can do this.
Yeah.
What a great way and
their buyers agent, I spoke to one today, he's buying property for like 300,000 in Victoria.
Yeah. On that basis.
On that basis or other basis, but it's like the property market is very accessible. Yes, you're not going to buy a $2 million property in Sydney and live in it. Like that's not what we're talking about. It's not achievable if you're 20.
Yeah.
You could buy an investment that later could be the deposit to your dream home.
So it's sort of like
with your Prince Charming.
It's sort of a bit. So it's a bit of sort of cross collateralization, but it's not. But it is.
With the family, it is.
Essentially, that's what it is.
It is
right?
a cross.
So it means your parents' property is encumbered
right,
until it's released, which may mean that they can't do other things potentially, and you need to have this.
Yeah, so you'd have to make sure your parents are not looking to sell.
Yeah. You got to get the timing right, but you can get to the property.
Yeah.
Earlier, faster.
Yeah, and I do. We've done a lot of those, but I don't think it's known enough that this option.
So I think this is probably more for
people always talk about I need 20%. I need 20%. First, you don't need 20. 10-ish is enough. Actually, zero is also fine.
So if you're a parent, you've got young, like 20, 30 kids, and you're a property investment, you can just do it against the property investment.
Yes, as well.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the home.
Yeah. So you can get you can get your kids into the market today.
Yeah, and you can do it with all your kids if there is enough equity. It's not just I can't do it just for you and not your sister or your brother.
Yeah.
If there's enough equity there, you can do it 3-4 times, whatever.
Okay.
With nothing. Yeah.
So okay, all right, good. Well, thanks for coming to have a chat today, Eva. I think we sort of did that okay. Yeah, covered a lot.
Covered our mission to.
Even I reckon you should be doing some podcasting on here. Just maybe you and some of our female listeners. I'll be happy to give you the
mic,
the seat.
I sit.
You can sit on this side. You can sit on this side then, and because again, like I'm conscious I'm a middle-aged white male guy talking about property. Like that
no one wants to listen.
No, but that might not be accessible, right? Like just because of the way it works. Again, so. I want more, and it's irrelevant who's from our side who's having this conversation. Might be Emily, right? Like, let's have more of these chats. I think we should absolutely be having more of these chats, and I want more female guests, whether you're a property professional or mainly property investors.
I tried to bring some clients that have.
Can you do that? Can you find some?
Yeah,
some
I've got
clients?
a few female I can think of right now that have 2 or 3 properties now that we've done together from scratch to.
Let's do it. Bring them on. Will they come and have a chat?
Yeah, I'll ask him. That would be great because they can really.
You can do it. I'll stay
talk
out
over
of it.
there.
Yeah. but I really enjoy I really enjoy those chats. They're really, really cool. But thank you.
Awesome.
You and your team are just happy to chat to me. People just go, I'm thinking about property. That's okay.
Yeah,
you don't have to call up and say I need a home loan.
No. We'll get you to the home loan because we want you to succeed.
Yeah.
So we'll show you how to. So it will start with a chat, but I guess the goal is for people to take the plunge and go for it.
Okay, and it can be done. I think you're a great Case in point.
If I can do it,
You're still
anybody can.
you're a young female, you know. It's like it's it is accessible. It can be done, and you're absolutely a testament for that. But and well done on all where you're going, your life here in Australia. I think it's really, really cool. But maybe I think we might need to do a tour of some French property investing. Maybe we have to go to Loire Valley or somewhere or other and speak to some real estate agents. That's a great excuse. I think we'll do that one day. But it's either from Finni FINNI.com.au. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
There's a little box there to book an appointment instantly.
Yeah.
Chat to us.
Okay. Good. And please do it, irrespective of gender. But today we're speaking to the
International Women's Day. Just want to
give Eva a
those
call.
in.
Give Eva a call. Absolutely. And if that's your first step, and we've spoken about something today, it's resonated for you, and you're curious about it and you want to know more about it, just call Eva and her team would be my recommendation. And 90% of winning is beginning. Got to start somewhere.
Yep.
This could be it. This could be the naysayer. This might be the naysayer.
This is the call.
This is the call. This is it. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. As we sort of acknowledge and mark International Women's Day, it's a great time to talk about these type of things. But what I would say, we shouldn't have to wait for International Women's Day to be putting a spotlight onto these type of things. So I'm sure we can do it much better on our side, and we're committed to that. So please get in touch and connect with us at any time. Come on the show, come and have a chat with us. Let us know what you're doing, and we want to share those success stories of women. Smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, social media, you can find us as well. And please, those reviews, please keep them coming in. We do get a kick out of them, and it's really important for us if you can do that. We'll see you next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.